Have you ever tried to change your life, but after a few days, everything returned to the same old routine? You wanted to wake up early, become more focused, exercise, study, save money, or stop wasting time. But after some time, your old habits came back. Atomic Habits by James Clear explains why this happens. This book is not only about motivation, it is about the hidden system behind human behavior. It explains how habits are formed, why bad habits become automatic, and how tiny daily actions can slowly change a person's identity, results, and future. And before we understand the chapters of this book, we first need to understand what Atomic Habits actually means. Introduction. What does Atomic Habits mean? The word atomic means something very small, something tiny but powerful. And the word habit means an action that a person repeats again and again until it becomes automatic. So, Atomic Habits means small repeated actions that may look ordinary in the beginning, but over time, they can create huge changes. James Clear explains that people usually look for big transformation, but real change often starts with very small improvements. This book shows that habits are not only actions, they are the system behind a person's results, personality, and future direction. But this book did not come only from theory. James Clear also connects these ideas with his own life. In the beginning of the book, he tells how, when he was young, a serious accident changed the direction of his life. He could not rebuild everything in one day, so he started improving slowly through small daily actions. Step by step, he rebuilt his routine, his discipline, his confidence, and his identity. This is why Atomic Habits feels practical. It is not just saying, be motivated. It is showing how small actions, repeated consistently, can help a person recover, improve, and become stronger over time. After listening to this summary, you will understand what James Clear explains inside the book: why small habits matter, how habits shape identity, how behavior follows a loop, why environment matters more than motivation, how bad habits become attractive, and why consistency is more important than intensity. Watch till the end, because the final idea of this book connects everything together. It shows that habits are not only about what a person does every day, they are about who that person is slowly becoming. Chapter 1. The Surprising Power of Atomic Habits. In the first chapter, James Clear explains that small habits often look meaningless in the beginning, but they become powerful when repeated over time. He explains that people usually expect progress to happen quickly. They think if they work hard today, they should see results tomorrow. But habits do not work like that. To explain this, James Clear uses the ice cube example. Imagine an ice cube sitting in a cold room. The temperature slowly rises, but the ice does not melt immediately. It still looks the same. Then, at the right temperature, the ice suddenly begins to melt. But the final degree was not the only reason it melted. All the previous degrees mattered too. This is how habits work. A person may study, exercise, write, or build a skill for days or weeks without seeing big results. But the effort is not wasted. It is being stored under the surface. James Clear calls this the plateau of latent potential, the period where progress is happening but is not yet visible. In this chapter, he also explains that people often focus too much on goals and not enough on systems. A goal is the result someone wants. A system is the process that creates that result. Many people have similar goals, but not everyone has a strong system. This chapter's main idea is that small habits are not small when time is added. They are tiny actions that can quietly build a completely different future. Chapter 2. How your habits shape your identity. In Chapter 2, James Clear explains that habits are deeply connected with identity. He says that lasting change does not only come from changing actions, it comes from changing the way a person sees themselves. the chapter explains 3 layers of behavior change. The first layer is outcome, which means the result a person wants, like losing weight, earning money, or getting better grades. The second layer is process, which means the habits and systems used to get that result. The third and deepest layer is identity, which means what a person believes about themselves. Most people try to change from the outside in. They start with the outcome first. For example, they say, "I want to read more," or "I want to become fit." But James Clear explains that real long-term change becomes stronger when it starts from identity. Instead of only focusing on reading more, the person begins to see themselves as a reader. Instead of only focusing on exercise, the person begins to see themselves as a healthy person. James Clear explains that every action is a vote for the type of person someone is becoming. One action does not change identity immediately, but repeated actions create proof. If a person writes every day, even a little, their brain starts collecting evidence that they are a writer. If a person trains regularly, their brain starts collecting evidence that they are an active person. The main idea of this chapter is that habits are not only about achieving something, they are about becoming someone. A person becomes what they repeatedly prove to themselves. Chapter 3. How to build better habits in 4 simple steps. In Chapter 3, James Clear explains the basic structure of every habit. He says that every habit follows 4 stages: cue, craving, response, and reward. The cue is the trigger that starts the habit. The craving is the desire that pushes a person to act. The response is the actual behavior. The reward is the benefit that makes the brain remember the habit and repeat it again. For example, when a phone gives a notification, that notification is the cue. The person feels curious, and that curiosity becomes the craving. The person opens the phone, and that is the response. Then they see a message, video, or update, and that becomes the reward. The brain learns that checking the phone gives something interesting, so the habit becomes stronger. James Clear explains that the same loop works for good habits and bad habits. Once a person understands this loop, habits become easier to understand. They are not random. They follow a pattern. This chapter introduces the 4 laws of behavior change. To build a good habit, James Clear says, the habit should be obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. To break a bad habit, the process is reversed. Make it invisible, unattractive, difficult, and unsatisfying. If this explanation is helping you understand the book in simple English, subscribe to the channel. Here, we explain powerful books in easy words, so you can understand the main ideas without spending hours reading the full book. Chapter 4. The Man Who Didn't Look Right. In Chapter 4, James Clear begins the first law: make it obvious. This chapter focuses on awareness. The main idea is that a person cannot change a habit until they first become aware of it. In the book, James Clear shares a story about a medical worker who noticed that something was wrong with a patient, even though the signs were not obvious to everyone else. This story shows the power of awareness and pattern recognition. When someone has experience, they can notice small signs that others miss. James Clear connects this idea to habits. Many daily habits happen automatically below the level of awareness. People check their phone, snack, delay work, open apps, or repeat small behaviors without fully realizing what triggered them. This is where he introduces the habit scorecard. The habit scorecard is a simple method where a person writes down their daily habits and marks them as positive, negative, or neutral. The purpose is not to shame the person. The purpose is to make unconscious behavior conscious. Once a habit becomes visible, it becomes easier to understand. A person stops saying vague things like, "I am lazy," and starts seeing specific patterns, like I check my phone when I am bored, or I waste time after dinner. The main idea of Chapter 4 is that awareness is the beginning of habit change. If a habit stays invisible, it continues to control behavior. Chapter 5. The best way to start a new habit. In Chapter 5, James Clear explains implementation intentions and habit stacking. The chapter shows that many people fail not because they lack desire, but because their plan is unclear. James Clear explains that vague goals like "I will exercise more" or "I will read more" are weak because they do not tell the brain exactly when and where the action will happen. A clear plan is stronger than a general wish. Implementation intention means creating a specific plan, using time and location. The idea is simple. I will do this behavior at this time in this place. This removes confusion and makes the habit more likely to happen. The chapter also introduces habit stacking. Habit stacking means attaching a new habit to an old habit that already exists. James Clear explains that the brain already has many routines, and new habits can be connected to those routines. For example, instead of trying to build a habit from nothing, a person attaches it to something already automatic. After an existing habit, a new habit is placed. This makes the old habit a trigger for the new one. The main idea of Chapter 5 is that habits become easier when they have a clear time, place, and trigger. Chapter 6. Motivation is overrated. Environment often matters more. In Chapter 6, James Clear explains that environment has a huge effect on behavior. This chapter challenges the common belief that people only need more motivation to change. James Clear explains that many habits are not caused by strong choices. They are caused by what is visible and available in the environment. If something is easy to see, it is easier to do. If something is hidden, it is easier to forget. To explain this, the book talks about how places shape behavior. A person may feel like working at a desk, relaxing on a sofa, eating in the kitchen, or sleeping in bed because the brain connects certain places with certain actions. Over time, the environment itself becomes a trigger. James Clear also explains that one of the best ways to change behavior is to redesign the environment. Good habits become easier when their cues are visible. Bad habits become weaker when their cues are removed. The chapter's message is not that motivation is useless. The message is that motivation is unreliable. Environment is more stable. A well-designed environment can guide behavior even when motivation is low. This is one of the strongest ideas in the book. People often become the product of the spaces they live and work in. Chapter 6. Motivation is overrated. Environment often matters more. In Chapter 6, James Clear explains that environment has a huge effect on behavior. This chapter challenges the common belief that people only need more motivation to change. James Clear explains that many habits are not caused by strong choices. They are caused by what is visible and available in the environment. If something is easy to see, it is easier to do. If something is hidden, it is easier to forget. To explain this, the book talks about how places shape behavior. A person may feel like working at a desk, relaxing on a sofa, eating in the kitchen, or sleeping in bed because the brain connects certain places with certain actions. Over time, the environment itself becomes a trigger. James Clear also explains that one of the best ways to change behavior is to redesign the environment. Good habits become easier when their cues are visible. Bad habits become weaker when their cues are removed. The chapter's message is not that motivation is useless. The message is that motivation is unreliable. Environment is more stable. A well-designed environment can guide behavior even when motivation is low. This is one of the strongest ideas in the book. People often become the product of the spaces they live and work in. Chapter 7. The Secret to Self-Control. In Chapter 7, James Clear explains that self-control is often misunderstood. People usually think disciplined people are better at resisting temptation. But the chapter explains that many disciplined people simply spend less time around temptation. James Clear shows that habits begin with cues. If the cue is removed, the craving becomes weaker. This means that controlling the environment can be more effective than fighting the craving again and again. The book explains that bad habits are not always destroyed by direct resistance. Sometimes they become weaker when their triggers are removed. If a person is constantly exposed to something tempting, they have to keep resisting it. But if the temptation is not visible or not easily available, the habit loses strength. This chapter also explains that self-control is a short-term strategy, while environment design is a long-term strategy. A person cannot depend on willpower forever, because willpower becomes tired. But a better environment can reduce the need for willpower. The main idea of Chapter 7 is that the strongest self-control is not always about fighting temptation. Sometimes it is about avoiding the situation where temptation starts. Now the book has explained why habits start, why cues matter, and why environment shapes behavior. But the next chapters explain something even more interesting: why some habits feel attractive, and why the people around us can shape what we desire. Chapter 8. How to make a habit irresistible. In Chapter 8, James Clear begins the second law: make it attractive. This chapter explains why some habits become so hard to resist. The book explains that habits are strongly connected with dopamine and anticipation. People do not only act because of the reward itself, they often act because they expect the reward. The craving before the action is what creates motivation. James Clear explains that bad habits are often attractive because they give quick, emotional rewards. Social media promises novelty. Junk food promises taste. Shopping promises excitement. Entertainment promises escape. The brain starts craving the feeling before the action even happens. The chapter also introduces temptation bundling. This means connecting something a person wants to do with something they need to do. The purpose is to make a beneficial habit feel more attractive by linking it with an enjoyable experience. This chapter shows that humans are not only logical, they are emotional. A habit becomes easier to repeat when it feels attractive before it even begins. The main idea of Chapter 8 is that if a habit feels desirable, the brain is more likely to repeat it. Chapter 9. The role of family and friends in shaping your habits. In Chapter 9, James Clear explains the power of social influence. The chapter says that human beings naturally copy the habits of the people around them. The book explains that people tend to imitate three groups: the close, the many, and the powerful. The close means family and friends. The many means the larger group or culture. The powerful means people with status, respect, or influence. James Clear explains that habits become more attractive when they help a person fit into a group. If a behavior is normal in a person's social circle, it becomes easier to repeat. If a behavior makes someone feel accepted, the habit becomes more powerful. The book also explains that people do not only copy actions, they copy identities. If a person spends time with readers, athletes, entrepreneurs, or disciplined people, those identities start to feel more normal. The main idea of Chapter 9 is that habits spread through groups, and belonging is one of the strongest forces behind behavior. If you are enjoying this chapter-wise explanation and want more videos like this, subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us explain more powerful books in simple English. Chapter 10. How to find and fix the causes of your bad habits. In Chapter 10, James Clear explains that cravings are often deeper than they look. A person may think they want a cigarette, a snack, a phone, or entertainment. But underneath that habit, there is usually a deeper desire. The book explains that habits are modern solutions to ancient desires. Humans want comfort, connection, status, relief, certainty, and pleasure. Bad habits often become attached to these desires because they offer a quick, emotional change. For example, a person may open social media not only because they want to scroll, but because they want connection or distraction. Someone may snack not only because they are hungry, but because they want comfort. Someone may delay work not only because they are lazy, but because the task creates stress. James Clear explains that to change a bad habit, a person must understand the craving behind it. The habit is often just the surface. The real cause is the feeling underneath. This chapter also explains that habits become easier to change when the meaning of the habit changes. If a bad habit is seen as rewarding, the craving stays strong. But if the person starts seeing the real cost clearly, the habit becomes less attractive. The main idea of Chapter 10 is that bad habits are often connected to emotional needs, and understanding the craving is the first step to changing the loop. Chapter 11. Walk slowly, but never backward. In Chapter 11, James Clear moves into the third law: make it easy. This chapter explains that action matters more than planning. The book makes a clear difference between motion and action. Motion means planning, researching, preparing, or thinking about doing something. Action means actually doing the behavior that creates results. James Clear explains that motion can feel productive, but it does not always produce change. A person can read about writing without writing. They can watch fitness videos without exercising. They can plan a business without making a sale. Motion gives the feeling of progress, but action creates real progress. This chapter explains that repetition is important because habits are built through practice. The more a behavior is repeated, the more automatic it becomes. The goal is not to make one perfect attempt. The goal is to repeat the action enough times that the brain learns the pattern. The title, Walk Slowly, but Never Backward, reflects the idea that speed is less important than consistency. The chapter shows that small repeated actions are better than endless preparation. The main idea of Chapter 11 is that habits are built by doing, not by planning forever. Chapter 12. The Law of Least Effort. In Chapter 12, James Clear explains that human behavior follows the law of least effort. This means people naturally move toward the option that requires less energy. The chapter explains that this is not simply laziness. It is part of how the brain works. The brain wants to save energy, so it prefers actions that are easy, simple, and convenient. James Clear explains that habits become more likely when friction is low. Friction means anything that makes a behavior harder to start. If a habit has too many steps, the brain resists it. If the habit is simple and close, the brain is more likely to perform it. The chapter also explains that bad habits can be weakened by increasing friction. When a behavior becomes slightly harder, people are less likely to do it automatically. This is why environment design appears again in this chapter. The environment can either remove friction or create it. James Clear compares habit design to making a path easier to walk. If the path is smooth, people follow it. If the path is full of obstacles, they avoid it. The main idea of Chapter 12 is that habits become easier when the system removes unnecessary effort. Chapter 13. How to stop procrastinating by using the 2-minute rule. In Chapter 13, James Clear introduces the 2-minute rule, This is one of the most famous ideas in Atomic Habits. The rule says that when starting a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes to do. The chapter explains that the purpose of the 2-minute rule is not to finish the whole task. The purpose is to make the beginning easy. James Clear explains that a habit must be established before it can be improved. For example, the book explains that a big habit can be reduced into a small starting version. Reading becomes reading 1 page. Running becomes putting on running shoes. Writing becomes writing 1 sentence. The small version acts like a gateway into the larger habit. This chapter is important because procrastination often happens before the action begins. Once the action has started, continuing becomes easier. The hardest part is usually crossing the starting line. James Clear explains that the 2-minute rule helps a person master the habit of showing up. Once showing up becomes automatic, the habit can grow naturally. The main idea of Chapter 13 is that small starts create momentum, and momentum makes bigger action possible. Chapter 14. How to make good habits inevitable and bad habits impossible. In Chapter 14, James Clear explains how commitment devices can shape behavior. A commitment device is a decision made in the present that controls future behavior. The chapter explains that people often make poor decisions when they are tired, distracted, or tempted. A commitment device helps by removing the option before the temptation appears. James Clear uses the story of Victor Hugo, the famous writer, who was struggling with procrastination while writing. According to the book, Hugo created a situation where distraction became difficult, forcing himself to focus on writing. This story shows the power of making the desired behavior easier and the unwanted behavior harder. The chapter also explains that technology and systems can help make habits automatic. For example, automatic savings, scheduled appointments, reminders, blockers, and pre-planned systems can remove the need for daily decision-making. The point of the chapter is not that people should become extreme. The point is that behavior becomes easier when the system supports it in advance. The main idea of Chapter 14 is that a strong system can make good habits more likely and bad habits less available. Chapter 15. The cardinal rule of behavior change. In Chapter 15, James Clear introduces the 4th law: make it satisfying. This chapter explains that the brain repeats behaviors that feel rewarding. The main rule is that what is immediately rewarded is repeated, and what is immediately unpleasant is avoided. This is important because humans naturally care about immediate feelings. Long-term rewards are powerful, but they are often too far away to motivate the brain every day. James Clear explains that bad habits are difficult because they usually feel good immediately and create problems later. Good habits are difficult because they often feel hard immediately and create benefits later. This mismatch is one of the biggest reasons habit change is hard. The chapter explains that good habits need some kind of immediate satisfaction. This does not mean the reward has to be huge. Even a small feeling of progress can help the brain repeat the action. James Clear gives habit tracking as one example. When a person marks a habit as complete, they get a small visual reward. The check mark becomes proof that they showed up. The main idea of Chapter 15 is that satisfaction closes the habit loop. If the action feels rewarding, the brain wants to repeat it. Chapter 16. How to stick with good habits every day. In Chapter 16, James Clear explains how habit tracking helps consistency. The chapter shows that tracking gives visible proof of progress. When a person sees a streak, the habit becomes more satisfying. The book also explains that tracking creates a form of identity evidence. Each completed habit becomes a sign that the person is becoming the kind of person they want to be. James Clear also gives a very important rule: never miss twice. The chapter explains that missing one day is not the real problem. Life happens. People get busy, tired, sick, or distracted. The bigger danger is when one miss becomes 2, then 3, and then the habit disappears. The never miss twice rule is about returning quickly. It teaches that consistency does not mean perfection. It means recovery. A person who returns after a mistake protects the habit from becoming broken. The main idea of Chapter 16 is that habit tracking keeps progress visible, and quick recovery keeps identity strong. Chapter 17: How an accountability partner can change everything. In Chapter 17, James Clear explains the power of accountability. The chapter shows that behavior changes when someone else is watching or expecting consistency. The book explains that humans care about reputation, respect, and social expectations. When a person knows someone else will see their actions, they often behave differently. This can be used to support good habits. James Clear discusses the idea of a habit contract. A habit contract creates a clear agreement about what behavior should happen and what consequence will follow if it does not happen. The purpose is not shame. The purpose is to make the habit more serious and visible. This chapter also connects to the earlier idea of social environment. People are more likely to continue a habit when they are part of a group where that habit is normal. Accountability is stronger when it is connected with identity and belonging. The main idea of Chapter 17 is that habits become stronger when they are supported by social pressure, accountability, and community. Chapter 18: The Truth About Talent. In Chapter 18, James Clear discusses talent, genes, and natural strengths. This chapter explains that people are not all built the same. Some people naturally find certain activities easier than others. But James Clear does not say that genes decide everything. Instead, he explains that genes create areas of opportunity. A person still needs habits, practice, and systems. But the process becomes easier when their habits match their natural strengths. The chapter explains that people should not blindly copy someone else's system. A routine that works for one person may not work for another. Some people perform better with structure, while others need flexibility. Some people enjoy competition, while others prefer quiet practice. Some people learn best alone, while others learn better in groups. James Clear also explains that the best results often come when a person finds the right field for their strengths. When the habit fits the person, consistency becomes easier. The main idea of Chapter 18 is that talent may give direction, but habits and systems still decide long-term success. Chapter 19: The Goldilocks Rule. In Chapter 19, James Clear explains how motivation works over time. The chapter introduces the Goldilocks Rule. This rule says that people stay most motivated when they work on challenges that are not too easy and not too hard. If a task is too easy, people become bored. If it is too difficult, they become discouraged. But when the challenge is just slightly above their current ability, they stay interested. James Clear connects this idea to long-term habit building. In the beginning, a habit must be easy enough to start, but over time, if it never becomes challenging, it may become boring. So the best habits usually grow with the person. The chapter also explains that boredom is one of the biggest threats to success. Many people quit, not because the habit stops working, but because it becomes repetitive and boring. Professionals continue, even when the work is not exciting every day. The main idea of Chapter 19 is that lasting motivation comes from the right level of challenge, and the ability to keep showing up even when the habit feels boring. Chapter 20: The Downside of Creating Good Habits. In the final chapter, James Clear explains that habits are powerful, but they also have a downside. When a behavior becomes automatic, a person may stop paying attention. They may keep repeating the same action without improving it. This chapter explains the importance of reflection and review. Habits help a person show up consistently, but reflection helps them improve. Without review, a person may become stuck at the same level. James Clear explains that mastery requires both automatic habits and conscious improvement. A person needs habits to create consistency, but they also need review to adjust mistakes and refine performance. The chapter also warns about becoming too attached to one identity. If someone's identity becomes too fixed, they may struggle when life changes. The book explains that identity should support growth, not trap a person. The main idea of Chapter 20 is that habits create stability, but reflection creates improvement. Atomic Habits is not just a book about productivity. It is a book about how small actions shape human life. James Clear explains that habits are the quiet system behind results, identity, and long-term change. The book begins with his own journey of rebuilding through small actions. Then it explains the power of tiny improvements, the ice cube example, the role of identity, the habit loop, the 4 laws of behavior change, the effect of environment, the power of social influence, the 2-minute rule, habit tracking, accountability, talent, motivation, and reflection. The deepest idea in the book is that every action is a vote for the type of person someone is becoming. A habit is not only something a person does, it is evidence. It proves an identity to the mind. So the final message of Atomic Habits is simple. Big change does not usually begin with big action. It begins with small, repeated actions. These actions become habits. Habits become systems. Systems shape identity. And identity shapes the future. This is why small habits matter. They may look tiny today, but with enough time, they can become a completely different life. If this video helped you understand Atomic Habits in simple English, subscribe to the channel for more book summaries and powerful life lessons. Also, comment below which book you want explained next. Your comment can decide the next video. Remember, small habits may look ordinary in the beginning, but repeated over time, they can quietly change everything.